Hi there. Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Catherine, and welcome. Welcome to a bit of my day. I'm going to get started on some Christmas journals, and I know it's only October, but for one thing, I am a Halloween Scrooge. I just don't enjoy Halloween whatsoever, and it would bring me great pleasure to just move straight on to Christmas. Plus, I like my Christmas early because come December 26th, I want it out of the house. I love Christmas, but December 26th, if it's over, get it out of the house. So, I was going to start working on a little book that I was going to do last year. And never did get around to it. And of course, December 26th arrived, and so it didn't happen. And it was this tiny little book here. Isn't that pretty? It's actually French. And it's the life story of Saint Anne. And it's very old. It's from 1886. And I believe that there was at one time a, not necessarily a convent, but quite a, for the Catholic Church in our town, a collection of nuns, or perhaps the Catholic school was completely taught by nuns. There's always really old Catholic things available for sale in our St. Vincent de Paul. And some of them are big, like furniture type pieces that would have been from a home that I wonder. I guess someday I'll have to look into the history of why there would be such things. I have one of the pictures here and I love it. It's a picture of the Weeping Madonna and it's just beautiful and it's huge. And I kept loving it at the store, but it was so expensive. And I think they wanted something like $40 for it, rightly so. It was a beautiful, huge old wooden frame. And anyhow, long story short, I got there on a day when everything not only was on sale, it was like 75% off, and long story short, I got it for, I think, $5. I think I paid $5. And it's mine now, and I love it. So, anyhow, I was going to, I love doing journals based somehow or other on a backstory in behind a character from A Christmas Carol. And this one was going to be Mrs. Cratchit's prayer book, maybe a little book that she just wrote her hopes and prayers in. So it was going to be quite the religious side of Christmas rather than the Santa Claus side of it. And but then I came across this book this summer, and I think it's a little more appropriate. First of all, it's bigger and there's more room. And it actually is, this is Catholic. And this is Church of England. Actually, during the time of Victoria. There isn't an actual date in it, but because it's the Common Book of Prayer, it's set up to last for the user through several years to let you know what Sunday of what year you do what prayers and celebrate what special acknowledgement. And this one went as far as 1888, and I suspect that at some point in here is when this was printed, and as well, it's constantly referring to Her Majesty. And I know it's too old to be Queen Elizabeth, so the only one prior to that would be Victoria. So that leads me to know that this book is definitely Victorian, which also is, A Christmas Carol is during the Victorian era. So, so I think this book would be much more appropriate and a much better size. As you can see, this is absolutely falling apart, and I am very much tempted to try my hand, first ever, at doing a soft spine. I'm thinking about it, but I've never done it before. And you know me, why not do something terrifying on such a beautiful old book? Like, it actually says Common Prayer on it, which is why I think it would be just so perfect to be Mrs. Cratchit's prayer book. But of course, instead of it being full of common prayers, it's actually full of her hopes and prayers. And thus meaning the new owner's hopes and prayers, maybe their thoughts, or maybe their Christmas memories and such. Who knows? It's a beautiful book. I got a little bit excited when I saw that it said Mrs. William Carr, Cookstown, Ontario, because I knew I had Carrs in my family tree. But I did get mixed up because there is a Cookstown, Ontario, which I do have family from, and there's also a Cooksville, Ontario, where I also have family from, and they're in two very different places in the province. And my Carrs, and his name actually is William Carr, who I'm related to, lived down in Cooksville, which is down near the lake in what is now sort of a Etobicoke, Mississauga area. And his wife's name was Emily. I did find this Mrs. William Carr. There was only one in Cookstown. You'd think of such a common name. But there was only one William Carr, and his wife's name was Jessie. So we know that this book, Book of Common Prayer, belonged to Jessie. My notes to myself, so that I could remember it all. And so it's got lots of really beautiful pages that I'll be able to incorporate into the book. I'm looking forward to it. But because this spine is so abysmal, it's just horrible. I'm sorry, but it is. I do think I either have to create a new hard spine for it, but I'm really tempted to do. Let me show you what I'm tempted to do. Where'd it go? Started my new basket. I am tempted to do what I've seen others do beautiful jobs on, by adding some lace on a cloth covered spine, and I'm not sure yet whether I'm going to do layers of lace. This one would be cool, wouldn't it? Or I'm torn that maybe Mrs. Cratchit just used bits and pieces of old lace left over from maybe her mother's dress or a sister's dress, or hard to say. So I've been going through my laces and seeing what might look pretty. This isn't old, but it's certainly really pretty. So the first thing, and then of course I love this, and it's going to need fabric at some point inside this the new cloth spine that we're going to create for it. So it's nice and soft and mushy, and the new owner will be able to fit lots of good things into it. I found this at I forget what thrift store, but I think I'm going to have to run it through the wash. I don't think I've run it through the wash yet. And but somebody was trying to make something, whether it was just a runner for the table or not sure. So I'll run it through the wash and maybe pull it apart and press it, and perhaps that's what we'll use, or I will also look through my basket, but we're not even there yet. I do like, sorry, my face is away from the microphone. I really like this for the end papers. It's a bag. But if I glue it onto, you know me, file folders, if I glue it onto a file folder, I really think it would make beautiful, don't you think that would look beautiful as end papers for this book? So I'm looking forward to that too. And then just putting in some old prayer cards and religious things and some Victorian things. Maybe she saved some pretty little things that were given away from drugstores or what have you. So the first thing we've got to do is carefully pull this apart. And I have no doubt that once we're done, it will be in 3 pieces no matter what I do. I can see the bands in there, and it's just the bands that are holding it together. The mull is gone. So let's just cut through the bands and get on with this. Hope you're doing well. Had a tricky week, but I'm doing well today. Husband has to work today, so it's quiet in the house here, and little Miss is having a nap in her favorite place under my table that's beside this table. It's funny how they decide where their favorite place is. So that's, you can see the mull inside there. I don't mind lifting that. And then this one here. Yep, there's those bands again. Do you see them right here and here? I have the Bible that goes with this. So Mrs. Carr obviously owned a matching set. So someday I'll make another prayer book out of that. Some people find this difficult to do because it was a religious book, but I don't find it difficult at all because I feel like what I'm doing is respectful of it. I'm not making a mockery of this book. Absolutely. I mean, I respect it so much. I made every effort and believe I have found who the owner was. So, I would think that Mrs. William Carr would be pleased to know that her book is going to be made into a beautiful Christmas journal. That's the way I look at it, at least. but to each his own. Boy, this is really, it's one of those books where you should almost have a mask on. There's just powder and dust coming off of it, and all this old glue. Now, sometimes there's a year where they've hammered these into, I always call it a mushroom shape. It always looks to me like a mushroom. And so I have found a few times, I have a first edition of Dick and Jane, Fun with Dick and Jane. And in printing along one of the folios was the year of publication. So never ever don't rule that out if you're taking a book apart, that you could possibly find a hidden mystery inside your spine. So, I have a few tutorials that I'm going to need to watch again to, because we're going to figure this out together. This might as well come off. See if there's anything under there. It's not too bad out here where I am today. It was calling for rain all day and it's not, so I'm not complaining. And no rain certainly makes my sweetie pie's day a little easier when he has to work a Saturday. I want to be careful with that. These books are so hard as rock. I know for a fact my sewing machine would not go through these. So if I need to be able to pierce the covers, I'm going to have to use, I'm thinking perhaps even the small hole of my crocodile, and use that, or else glue the fabric in, and then again small hole of the crocodile, and maybe use some brads. I've got some really old brass brads, the real deal. They're I think they'd look really cool, and they certainly would hold it, I think, nice and strong. So anyhow, I'm really looking forward to this book. I'm looking forward to all the books that I've chosen. I'm not going to do too many. It's likely I'm only going to get 2 done this year, 2 Christmas books done this year. And the next one is going to be very, very big. So if anyone's interested in the next one, hopefully they are avid writers with lots to say. Because it's a big book, but it's really going to be pretty, and it's going to be a lot of fun to make. Because usually these books are so rotten looking, and usually have something to do with the poor Cratchits, who my heart goes out to, because I imagine that's what my family was like, that my dad's side that lived in London during that era. were just as poor, just as poor as the Cratchits, if not worse off. They certainly had more children. Now I have to remember which side's which. There we go. This, I'm not even sure these are worth. I might save that. That was leather, I think. No, that's cloth. You can even see the crackle on it. I hope it's showing up. There's crackle on it. And there's even, this is the back side. It looks like there's some string that got tangled up underneath the fabric. Or whether this got painted after, that maybe the fabric was a different color and then they painted the book. I'm not sure. But I like what it did to the book. I love this crackle, and I'm not going to do a thing to it. And although these are a little bit rough looking, I like it, and I will not be covering those up with corners because I like the way they look. All right, let's get rid of this mess. That wasn't too bad. When there's no spine left, this is all you have to go on for the cleanup. There it is. and this. There is our spine left from our poor little book from Mrs. Carr. So maybe Mrs. Carr was quite wealthy, and when she was finished using this book, maybe there was a box in the church for the poor, and maybe Mrs. Cratchit walking by spotted this and thought, I can do something with that. I have papers at home, and I can make my own book and write my own prayers in it, my own Christmas prayers and my own Christmas thoughts and my own Christmas recipes. I don't know about you, but thinking up a story behind a book certainly inspires me to come up with what's going to be inside it. And I think I was leading towards this thought and my mind wandered away as ever. But I really love using all kinds of different ledger papers when I do one of my Cratchit Christmas journals, because I always like to think that maybe once in a while, if a paper was going to be thrown in the fire or tossed in the bin, that Bob would grab it and bring it home. I know my dad was a printer to earn a living, and he would bring papers home for us, for my brothers and I, because we all loved to draw, and my dad was always bringing home papers to us, which was just wonderful. So part of me imagines that somehow papers found their way home to the Cratchit house, and those kinds of papers would have been ledger papers. So I really love making use of lots and lots of lined and ledger papers when I do my Christmas Cratchit books. So I think we're going to end here today. It wasn't much. We took it apart, and we met Mrs. Carr, Mrs. William Carr, but to her friends and family would have been known as probably Jessie. And back then, Jessie was actually the name. I have a great aunt Jessie, and you'd think, oh well, her name must have been Jessica. No, but back then, women really were called Jessie. That was their name. And I kept looking for my mom's Aunt Jessie and hoping to find that I was going to, find her birth certificate and it would say Jessica Mackay. And no, found her birth certificate. She very much was a Jessie. So I suspect Mrs. William Carr was also very much a Jessie. That's what's on her headstone. So up in Cookstown, Ontario, which now has become Innisfil, Ontario. If you're going to look for it, you're not. People know it's still there, and there's certainly still little signs that say Cookstown. Like I can go to Cookstown. I actually have a piece of furniture in my house that we bought at an antique shop in where Cookstown is, but it's not officially anymore. Kind of like where I was born, because I was born in Scarborough, but Scarborough is now Toronto. But if you lived in Scarborough, you know where Scarborough is. All right, I've wandered off on enough topics. There we go. So the first Christmas journal will begin, and I'm not sure whether preparing this spine will be done on camera or not, or whether I need to do it myself first without the camera going, and then we'll do it again on another journal together when I feel a little more confident in what I'm doing. So wish me luck. I hope you're having a great rest of your day, and I hope you're well and you're safe and that your loved ones are too. So take care, and we'll talk soon. Bye. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to click like down there and say hi. YouTube likes it better and it helps pay for my glue. Bye.